Hello, this is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from the beautiful metaverse. And this is Reverend Don's Vlog, and welcome. Tonight we have a question from Christine Filas, and her question is, if you'll pardon me, I must shut off that little bell. Her question is about my understanding of the term left-hand path, and I thought this would be a good subject for a vlog. We're doing a later time than usual tonight, but as I said a couple of vlogs ago, we're going to try several different times and see what people like, and maybe we'll stick with multiple times. I do a chat room tonight in half an hour, so I'll be going more or less directly from the vlog to the chat room, and that should be a bit of a conversation starter. So what do we mean by left-hand path? Well, my answer to this is like a lot of my answers. It depends who you talk to, because there's not just one definition of this term. So let's look at the term and where it comes from, as I understand it, and what it means. So the right hand versus the left hand has been used as a polarity in certainly in Indo-European culture from as far back as anyone can say. Not necessarily universally around the world, but certainly Indo-European culture. And usually the right is thought of as being positive and the left is thought of as being negative. However, negative in this context can mean either negative in the sense of bad or negative in the sense of moving inward rather than outward. And obviously, these are two very different understandings. And I really shouldn't have to say more than that in Latin, the word for right hand is dexter and left hand is sinister, to tell you how people have tended to look at this over the millennia. So the idea of connecting the left with ideas of negativity is certainly nothing new in European culture and its offshoots. But the term left-hand path is another matter. It was introduced into Western metaphysics, I believe, in the 19th century. I don't think even especially early in the 19th century, though I couldn't tell you exactly what year offhand. And it comes from Indian Tantra. And in Tantra, as I understand it, as I was taught, and if you're an Indian practitioner of Tantra and I am in error, please feel free to correct me, but my understanding is that in Tantra there were two schools of thought, are two schools of thought. One uses the sexual mysteries in a meditational and philosophical sort of way to advance the practitioner spiritually. And the other uses them more literally, with actual sexual rituals that enlist the energy of the body to transform the energy of the spirit, which I personally think is a wonderful, wonderful thing. Both of these paths are effective, both of them are good as far as I'm concerned, but they have different names because they have different practices. I was taught that in Tantra, if the yogini, which is the female partner, sits to the right of the yogi, that they are practicing right-hand path Tantra. And what this means is that they're going to be engaging in meditation and philosophical exercises, but not actual physical sexuality. Whereas if the yogini sits to the left of the yogi, they are in fact intending to use actual sexuality to enact the sexual mysteries rather than meditation. And that this was the original meaning of right-hand and left-hand path. To extend it a bit, this could also be taken to be the difference between what is done purely internally and what is done externally. And that really is my personal understanding of the term, that when we talk about the left-hand path, we're talking about systems that use external components as a major part of their function, where the right hand does not. Now, of course, this is not how most people are using that term, nor is it necessarily how I would use it in conversation, but if you ask me what it means, my answer is this is what it means. By connection to other things, for many people, it means the right-hand path being the positive, the left hand being the negative. Um, Beneficial magic versus baneful magic, for example. I think that is really very oversimplified, but is the most common interpretation of the term you're going to find, including by people who use it as a self-descriptor. They usually mean that they are not necessarily on what we call the good karma path. It can mean other things too. It depends who's speaking. As I say, in my mind, I use it more in the tantric sense, but I understand that isn't the normal way. And I want to say hello to Lavoya Nguyen and Alpha Draconian and Sylvania Rainoak and Noreen Sullivan and everyone watching. Thank you for joining us. I hope you're finding the vlog interesting and enjoyable. That basically is what I have to say about my understanding of the meaning of the term left-hand path as well as the use. And in conversation, it usually means a negative path, but not necessarily, and you should not assume that if you're in a conversation. If someone is referring to a left-hand path, they could mean, again, something that is more external than internal. They could mean something that just comes from a certain cultural background. You need to ask them what they mean before you make an assumption, because you cannot accurately assume in many cases. Those are my thoughts on the term left-hand path, and also an awful lot of terms that we use. One of the problems we have in the current metaphysical community is that our terms are often used in dramatically different ways by different people. And that can be very confusing and can cause a lot of problems that will be headed off if we just ask, well, what do you mean by that? Or what does that mean to you? I think that would simplify a great many things. So those are my thoughts on left-hand path. Again, to me, its meaning really ties to its origin, which is in Tantra. And I consider Tantra to be very positive. Now, when the term left-hand path, when the whole idea of Tantra came into Western European practice, many of those people came from a background where they regarded anything sexual as negative. And that's partly how the term left-hand path got such a negative connotation in Western usage. And I think that's unfortunate, but it's nonetheless the case. Again, don't assume what people mean by the term, however, ask them. And you may find that not only may it be one of these different things I've said, but it may be something totally different. I think our community would be more coherent if we agreed on these definitions, but we do not, and we're not going to, and there's no point in trying because it's simply not going to happen. So instead, we must understand the definitions of the person we're speaking with, and this will clear up a lot of confusion. So if you like the vlog, please hit like, subscribe, or share according to the platform you're using. Please feel free to come to Chancellor's Chat tonight at 9, and my next vlog will be on Wednesday, and I hope to see you there. Until next time, may you blessed be.